The Supreme Court trial of Jennifer Woolsey follows the stabbing of her husband John Arthur Woolsey at their home in Endeavour Street, Rutherford on July 26 last year. Jennifer Woolsey had initially pleaded not guilty to the murder of her husband during a brief appearance in Newcastle Supreme Court last week. However, this morning she changed her plea, pleading guilty to manslaughter on the grounds of provocation. The change of plea was accepted by Mr Justice Newman, who then discharged a jury empanelled for the woman's trial. In a summary of facts presented to the court by the Crown, it's claimed John Woolsey was stabbed once in the chest during an argument over the treatment of his wife and her son. Jennifer Woolsey has been granted bail, with the case to continue tomorrow. Meantime, the man charged with the murder of Janice Gardiner at Singleton in March this year briefly appeared before the Supreme Court today. Counsel for Malcolm Hungerford indicating he's likely to plead guilty when his trial begins next Monday. The six-day trial followed this accident on the Pacific Highway at O'Sullivan's Gap in October 1990. A young boy was killed in the crash, 5 other people in 2 cars were injured, and the truck's load spilled, causing a major chemical emergency. Philip Clout of Kempsey has pleaded not guilty to a number of offences, including culpable driving occasioning death and culpable driving causing grievous bodily harm. The 7-woman, 5-man jury began their deliberations on Friday evening and resumed this morning. By this evening they returned to the courtroom to tell Judge Freeman that they still hadn't come to a decision in the case. The jury foreman telling His Honour, "We could be here forever, sir." Philip Clout has been released on bail, with a date for the retrial yet to be set.
Childbirth, a joyous occasion, but there is a dark side developing. Dark, that is, for the obstetricians whose job it is to bring these babies into the world. Like most professionals, obstetricians cover themselves by taking out insurance, but spiralling premiums are causing many doctors to think twice about delivering babies.
There are now 29 in the region, and of those, about 14 are busy and active delivering babies.
The rest, Dr Hewson says, have limited their practice, many concentrating on gynecology only. As a result, midwives, who are mostly covered by state government, are taking more responsibility for supervising births. This year, obstetricians in New South Wales paid out between $14,000 and $20,000 in premiums. In 5 months' time, that's expected to rise 50%, costing around $30,000.
There is a serious effect on recruitment to obstetrics because young obstetricians worry about what they're going to be facing 2 or 3 years down the track.
The reason for the high premiums is the high number of lawsuits against obstetricians. Parents or the child can sue their doctor until the child is 24 years old. In a recent lawsuit, a doctor paid out $5 million to a person 20 years after their birth. 2 babies are going to have serious damage. That's a natural incident, and that occurs no matter how good the medical care is. Dr Hewson believes there are ways of bringing the insurance situation under control, including introducing a no-fault clause or capping the damages payout. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
A cap or a top level on the amount that can be paid out.
Catherine Lamond, NBN News. Local property owner Tim March donated his land for the annual fun day, which is held to raise money for the Nambucca Valley Phoenix Club. The non-profit organisation operates 3 businesses that employ adults with intellectual disabilities. It runs a tea room, gallery and craft and woodworking shop in Bowraville. Today the local community got behind the Phoenix Club. People thronged to the property off Valor Beach Road to catch all the entertainment. The highlight of the day was the top-line country music performances. Greco the juggler managed to keep all his fingers during his act, while the public took part in sheath throwing, face painting and helicopter rides. The success of the Country Music Fun Day ensures it will return next year.
Handle. Yep. Yep.
Too much
Handle.
water.
Yep.
That's what we do.
Handle.
We killed it all.
Handle. 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 Handle.
The new system is being introduced in an attempt to make the Martyrs budget go further. Each department will be responsible for how it spends the money it's allocated.
They hold the budget, they are the stakeholders, they are responsible for coming in on budget, rather than having several layers above them telling them what to do.
A similar system was introduced at the John Hunter Hospital. After its first year in operation, the hospital greatly overspent its budget.
We have to make sure that we don't have the same problem.
Interim chairman of the board, Dr. John Duggan, says a senior management committee, including one board member, will review expenditure each week. The hospital has also put in a budget submission for more money from the Hunter Area Health Service.
I think several million more would make a lot of difference.
The new system of spending will come into effect in the next few months. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
The 200-hectare Greenpoint site owned by McCloy's is zoned rural, so the company is now hoping to move into agriculture, putting in a $3.5 million egg-laying farm. The Greenpoint Action Committee is stunned by the idea.
It doesn't really sound like an ideal use of a bushland area that's surrounded by urban development. I get the impression that a lot of people aren't even taking it seriously.
Managing Director of McCloy's, Jeff McCloy, was unavailable to appear on camera. But he did say there is no question this is a serious project. The company has already spent more than $30,000 on a development application. The plan is to put up 3 sheds similar to these in the southeast corner of Greenpoint off Crowders Bay Road. More than 14 jobs would be created. The protesters say the land should be left as a reserve. Council will make a decision on the egg farm within the next 3 months. Peter Ryan, NBN News. A popular meeting place for teenagers late at night, Charlestown's shopping centre is under attack. According to Steve Owens from the Charlestown Chamber of Commerce, adolescents as young as 12 are spraying and kicking their way along the streets.
They come in with a gut full of beer and feeling extra brave and so forth. There's not much to do, so let's kick a few garbage tins, let's throw a few things through windows, and let's damage a few telephone boxes and other people's private property.
On a recent weekend, $10,000 worth of damage was done. While police regularly patrol the area, the Chamber of Commerce believes security guards are needed to fight the problem. In the Hunter Street Mall, a security service is working 7 nights a week. Newcastle City Centre says it's been a great success. In 1 month, the guards attended 21 serious incidents. Now vandalism is dropping off.
A lot of them are a bit wary now that they know there's a presence in the mall, and if something happens, it will do something about it.
About 85% of the Hunter Street Mall shopkeepers pay $1 a night for the service. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Prince Acumen made it clear he wanted the cash, but he tired in the Strait, allowing every spirit drinker's tip to get home.
Issue, followed by Golden Cocktail and Futile. March Hare in front with 100 to go. Futile and Golden Cocktail can't pick him up, and March Hare is back with a sparkling win in the Peter Pan Stakes. March Hare wins.
Gary Harley's tipped the short price favourite, one paying $1.90 and $1.20. The Quinella $10.90 and the trifecta $312.30.
Legacy is the charity that provides for the families of servicemen killed in action or on peacekeeping missions. To acknowledge the organisation's 70th anniversary, 22 people from the RAF are taking part in a 4,500 kilometre relay. It started at the country's newest RAF base at Weipa in far north Queensland, and it'll finish at the oldest base, Point Cook in Melbourne. The money raised will go to Legacy.
It cares for those dependents who have lost someone near and dear to them in action.
We caught up with the team mid-journey outside Newcastle. During the last 2 weeks, each runner has covered 15 kilometres a day. The run will finish on the 3rd of September, which just happens to be Legacy Day.
We believe that Legacy is a worthwhile organisation that we should all support, but it's one that the public should be aware of, because Legacy only gets its money and funds from the public and receives no support from the government whatsoever.
It's hoped the event will raise about $20,000. Jane Anderson, NBN News. This is the new addition to the Swansea Coast Guard, a $52,000 vessel which will cruise Lake Macquarie and the nearby coastline. It'll replace another launch which was swamped by huge surf off Swansea in June this year.
It made a hole in our activity as a search and rescue unit, so we had to go and look for another vessel.
The new vessel will be called the Neil Robertson Henderson, after a founding member of the Swansea Coast Guard. Neil died suddenly last year. In a moving ceremony, his wife Margaret accepted the honour.
I felt a very great honour because my husband did put a lot of time into the Swansea Coast Guard, but knowing him being an ex-Navy man, he would feel it was terrific because his love of the water would be there, and also because she's a rescue craft and he loved and wanted people to know about safety.
Maitland went into the semi as favourites, but their attack was often stopped in its tracks. But David Ray took half the opposition team in a run that set up the Blacks' first try. Waratah gathered all their aggression they could to put Maitland off their game, but it just didn't work. Both packs regularly met in the middle, but neither one or the other dominated. With 10 minutes to go, the scores were locked at 10-all, and that's when Maitland jumped up a gear and won very comfortably. Number 1 Sports Ground was packed to the brim and every vantage point was fair game. The crowd expected fireworks and Tim Perrin lit the fuse 2 minutes in. A few minutes later, Brian Robb had a clear run to the line but threw a juggling act in to keep up the entertainment level. The underdogs were suddenly looking genuine chances. Tony Price knew it was time to pull something out of the bag. That try had the desired effect, but Peter Chapman tried to stretch the friendship just too far. Curry went to the break 12-6 leaders and came back in the second half looking confident. But West were on a roll and determined to get over the line. Only sheer desperation held them out. Finally, Michael Reid found the space and he was in to lock up the scores. Curry replied through sheer weight of numbers. The conversion from Phil Williams will go down as the kick of the year. He defied all logic and a gale force wind. Basking in the joy of a try, Curry went to sleep, allowing Todd Anderson to stroll across the line. Again, the scores were locked up, the intensity from both sides immense, but a high tackle with 3 minutes to go saved West from a try, but ended up costing them the game. Phil Williams made no mistake. The Bulldogs then only had to hang on for the bell. The whole Curry side swept up in history-making emotion. The Curry team are on their way home now as heroes. One punter a lot happier as well. It's believed he collected $15,000 for the win.
Three-quarters of this subdivision at Warners Bay has dual occupancy housing. The concept was designed for inner city living where sewerage and water could be shared. But the twin dwelling has become so popular that it makes up more than half of all development applications received by Lake Macquarie Council. However, it's not preferred by everyone, with many people complaining to Council.
The concern is coming not from the people building them, but from the people who bought adjoining blocks, they wanted to put their own single dwelling dream home on it, and suddenly finding that they're being surrounded by duplex or dual occupancies.
Mayor John Kilpatrick says council virtually has its hands tied, with nothing in state government legislation to prevent the building of these dwellings. However, the council can encourage developers to restrict the construction.
We've asked the planning and the building section to have a look at ways in which we could do something about it. The problem is it's the state government law, so we are very limited, but we are looking for future subdivisions to try and encourage developers to place covenants on the title, limiting the development on each block as one unit.
Jodie McKay, NBN News.
The bus was on a regular run to Taree Christian School, a few kilometres out of town. Many of the 23 children were aboard the connecting service after travelling to town from outlying areas. Police say the driver blacked out on a straight stretch of Bushland Drive, a detour to Wingham.
The driver has gone onto the northern footpath and travelled up the footpath and collided with a tree.
The children were thrown forward by the impact, most into the seats in front. 3 ambulances along with volunteer rescuers treated the injured and transported 11 children and the driver to Manning Base Hospital. Almost all the children have since been sent home.
Anyone else here injured?
A bit chaotic at the time with many injured school children wandering around, anxious parents.
3 children initially thought to have suffered spinal injuries have since been cleared and only 2 remain in hospital. The driver underwent further medical tests this afternoon. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
Starkey is a 200,000 hectare land parcel on Cape York Peninsula north of Cooktown. It's controlled by George Quaid Holdings, which has offered it for sale on the international market for $26 million. According to the Wilderness Society, the area is high quality wilderness.
We're calling on the federal government to give a firm commitment that no international sale of this land would be allowed.
These tribal elders were the traditional owners of Starkey. They were dispossessed of their land earlier this century. They're now on a month-long journey along the east coast of Australia. It's a mission that today brought them to Newcastle. It'll lead them on to Sydney and Canberra, and they hope a journey that will result in the land remaining in its natural state.
Don't want it to be developed. It will destroy all our sacred sites, our heritage.
The Wilderness Society says removing the threat of overseas sale and possible development is the first step in the campaign to protect Starkey.
We'd like to see the land handed back to the traditional owners so it can be properly looked after.
The Knights have been labouring under a $2 million debt since carrying out improvements to the ground in 1988. Last night, State Sports Minister Downey and League boss Quayle met with Knights Chairman Hill to work out a deal to save the club.
The Knights have spent the money on a ground which is owned by the government and which is a community asset, and we believe that the Minister accepted our proposal that should be taken up by the community. In other words, the Knights should be repaid for what they've done.
While it's yet to be confirmed, this could involve a long-term government loan. Hill says the talks have been the most important in the club's 6-year history. John Quayle says it's a positive move. He says the Knights are very important to the league. It's step by step with this, and I think the first step has been taken. The New South Wales Rugby League will set up a committee to oversee the restructuring of the club's finances. Michael Hill says this will not affect the makeup of the club's board.
Miners saw red at a bargain basement deal to supply cheap coal to Turkey and say they walked off the mines around the country to protect their lives. The latest coal order isn't a big one, but it was won by drastically undercutting the prices of overseas and local suppliers.
800,000 tonne today could be 1.5 million tonne tomorrow, and in fact could be the whole coal industry output of 1994.
Coal demand has been so high that little's been kept in reserve, and this afternoon Newcastle's giant Kooragang loader dispatched its last cargo, 100,000 tonnes, to Korea. Trainloads of coal from the Upper Hunter have dwindled from 40 to just 3 a day as the stocks run out. The Port Waratah loaders will run out tomorrow. 13 ships. It could be the middle of next week before supplies are flowing. The Executive Director of the New South Wales Coal Association, Meredith Hellicar, blasted the United Mine Workers Union for its so far unsuccessful attempt to have the government establish a national coal price-fixing authority, saying the strike, in the face of a tribunal order to return to work, was irresponsible and a kick in the guts for Australia.
The easiest option for them is to turn the blame onto the union, and it takes the heat away from their irresponsible actions on allowing these price cuts to continue by these multinational companies that, I might add, take the profits back out of the country and don't generate any of the funds back into our country.
The crash happened at about 8:30 on a stretch of scenic drive near Budgewoi. Tragically, it seemed both drivers were almost home after a day's work. Police say a utility driven by a 30-year-old San Remo man crossed to the wrong side of the road and crashed head-on into Jennifer Blackhurst's small van. She was killed instantly. Another car crashed into the wreck, but that driver was uninjured. Police are yet to interview the driver of the utility, who was taken to Wyong Hospital with a broken arm and leg. It's believed the man, a shift worker, may have gone to sleep at the wheel while on his way home from an extended shift. Andrew Lobb, NBN News. The third floor of Gosford Police Station is the new home of the North Region headquarters. About 60 police and public servants have moved in under the command of Assistant Commissioner Ray Donaldson. The building has undergone a $1.2 million refurbishment to house elements of the force, including staff offices, legal services, internal affairs and personnel departments. The headquarters was opened by Minister for Police and Emergency Services Terry Griffiths at a ceremony attended by Senior Police, Environment Minister Chris Harcher and the Mayor of Gosford Robert Bell. North Region headquarters moved from rented premises at Hornsby to take up their new home on the coast. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
New South Wales streaked away with a 4-point lead in the first half, but then the tables started to turn. The Victorian players got their eye in and they were off. Scott McGregor was punishing from the foul line, but what he did at one end of the court was thrown away by his teammates through poor defence. In the dying minutes, the Blues came within a point or two, but gave away a host of fouls.
We were in there, so we had a chance and we just didn't take it.
Although they lost the final, all the players agreed the week has made a vast improvement to their game.
Really learned to block out under the basket. So we've had to, because the Victorians, they're a lot of big guys as well, very strong.
That determination to learn stood the boys in good stead. 4 of the Blues named in the honorary Australian schools team. The New South Wales girls did just as well. Christy Baker and Bernadette Sands named in the squad, along with Brooke McGuinness from the Central Coast. The girls' game was a very physical match-up. The Queenslanders refusing to give any leeway around the basket. However, the New South Wales girls had too much skill and whitewashed the Maroons. It's expected many of the girls playing in today's finals could win themselves contracts in the Ladies Professional League.
Christy Baker stands 172 centimetres or 5 foot 8 inches tall and is touted as the best female talent to come out of Newcastle in recent years. A member of National League side the Hunter Novas, the 16-year-old Newcastle High student is also in the Australian under-18 train-on squad. In December this year, Christy will tour America with the state talent squad. At the National Schools Championships held in Newcastle last week, Christy, seen here wearing number 10, was named in the Australian honorary team. Topping this, the point guard has also been offered a 4-year scholarship by Evansville University in the American state of Indiana.
It's a bit overawing actually, it's so far away and, you know, America's supposed to be a great basketball country, so yeah, it was flattering.
If Christy chooses to go, she'll leave after the HSC next year. While the near future may still be undecided, Christy knows exactly where she's headed long term.
I'd like to play for Australia, either in the next junior team, the team that just won, or maybe to the Olympics one day.
And coach of 2 years, John Hoyle, believes she's got the goods.
She's a good shooter, she's a good distributor of the ball, she's got that fire, that competitive fire, she loves to play and she loves to train as well.
Christy's only threat is a niggling foot injury, but John Hoyle says a few months' rest will cure that. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
While Newcastle soccer has a strong tradition, it doesn't have a huge supporter base, and without people paying at the gate, clubs struggle for funds. 2 years ago, the Northern New South Wales Soccer Federation made clubs sign a contract stipulating measures to ensure they remain financially viable and were doing everything possible to make sure soccer was developed in their area and to guarantee spectator facilities were kept up to standard and improved. A quick glance shows the Cardiff ground is showing the wear and tear of 10 years of non-stop use. The club agrees, but says it was more concerned with staying financially afloat.
The Federation also advises that had been dropped as criteria for First Division because of the recession that we're in and that funds were hard to come by, and those things have been dropped.
2 forfeits in the Youth League also prompted the Federation to rule Cardiff had failed to fulfil the contract and will not allow the club to compete in the First Division in 1994. Could this mean the end of the Cardiff Soccer Club?
You'll never see the end of Cardiff Soccer Club. Never. There will always be soccer played at Cardiff.
Cardiff officials are now considering switching to Third Division where the fees are cheaper, but the move could cause another round of problems. Many of Cardiff's players signed on to try and play First Division. Now that that's not possible, their contracts are in limbo, but the club executives say that they won't stand in the way of any player who now wants to leave. The introduction of Cessnock, though, will provide a much-needed injection of enthusiasm into the competition. Darren Curtis, NBN News.
More than $300 million has been allocated for road and rail works, including new Tangara trains and XPT cars. $74 million for the region's power stations, $39 million for works at Liddell and Bayswater. $10 million will go to health, $1 million for Gosford Hospital, $5 million for Stage 1 of the Maitland Hospital redevelopment, $2.6 million for Newcastle's Mater Hospital. 170 new housing units will be started at a cost of $27 million. Education. New schools will be built at Narara, Grahamstown and Mannering Park, plus additions at Dungog, Muswellbrook and Talara. More than $3 million will be spent on sewerage works at Burwood, Dudley and Charlestown. The budget has allocated $24.5 million for the Honeysuckle project. Peter Ryan, NBN News.